And someday the high and the mighty will fall. There will be no power brokers, the wall of power will fall. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wall of Power, a radio hour. This is your host, Paul Metsa. We couldn't be more excited to welcome back my personal psychological morphine drip to all things political. He's a journalist, author, sports nut, Dylan fan, Who fanatic, Massachusetts native who spent his formative years at Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, knows a thing or two about beer. And my weekly must-read list in politics with Charles Pierce and Esquire.com. In our continuing series we call Checkpoint Charlie, we are welcoming the esteemed Mr. Charlie Pierce. Charlie, how are you this evening?
Well, I'm doing much better than I was doing the last time we talked.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, I watched that debate.
Why? You know why? Because the state of Minnesota has put a charge in everything.
That's right, man. We
got to borrow your governor for a few years, but that's the way it goes.
If all goes well, you'll borrow him for 8, maybe 12 years, right?
No, I can't do it. Well, maybe, yeah. If he decides to run himself, yeah, okay.
But Walsh has been an incredible governor. I mean, he is exactly who you see on your TV screen and through the radio. He is the real deal. You know, National Guard guy, great teacher, hunter. He's the guy you want to drive by if you drive into a snowbank in 40 below weather, because you know he is going to have chains to pull you out of the ditch.
Yeah, he's the guy who puts the chains on the truck in October.
He's got it all going on. He's got a great family, and he's just been an incredible governor. We're just so excited to be back to that great history of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party that has put us on the map for decades and decades. I posted a thing on Facebook when he was picked, and I said, the ghosts of Hubert Humphrey, John Blotnick, and Paul Wellstone are cheering. And we couldn't be more excited that he's...
who was one of the first guys to jump in with both feet? Former Governor Ventura.
Yeah, exactly. And, I voted pretty much DFL my whole life. I've been voting for 50 years. I did vote for Arnie Carlson, who was a great Republican governor in 92. He was one of the first guys, not only Republicans, but one of the first guys that deposited the idea of legalizing marijuana, which Walsh actually did. I did vote for Ralph Nader, but that's kind of because I had a major crush on his running mate, Winona LaDuke, who's a incredible woman. And I did vote for Jesse because he had a great line, Charlie, when he was running. I listened to a Minnesota Public Radio interview with him, and he said, government should be invisible, which I took to mean keep our streets plowed, keep the cities and counties running, but as Walsh would say, but mind your own damn business. And but yeah, happy to see Jesse come on. I played his inaugural at the Target Center.
I was there for that.
Oh man, do you remember he came out? He had a beautiful white leather jacket, headband, of course, shades, and his boas. But I'll never forget the Jimi Hendrix T-shirt he was wearing.
Well, I remember the first thing we did was we went out to some nature preserve, and he had that leather fringy Indian jacket on, the white one.
Yeah, very cool.
He released an eagle. That was his event for the day.
Yeah.
I sat down with him for a while. I found him a pretty interesting guy.
He's a bright guy. And I think he got a little spooked, like Garrison Keillor did when the media, you are the media, but when they started to at least according to Jesse, and I think according to Garrison Keeley, they weren't minding their own damn business. And so I think he went a little off the rails with that. But I have nothing but respect for the guy. Although, he was doing that Russian TV station for a while, but I'll forgive him for that now that he's back in Harris Walls.
Yeah, and he's, and Walsh is from that part of Minnesota that I don't know very well.
Yeah, well, he taught in Mankato.
That corner down by Iowa.
Yeah, well,
I spent a lot of time there.
I consider anything south of Minneapolis northern Iowa, but that's just me. That's just me. Did you have the pleasure or the horror of listening to Elon Musk talk to Donald Trump last night?
No, it's funny. I was talking with Stephanie Miller, my usual Tuesday hit with her. I couldn't make that thing work.
Yeah.
I finally gave up.
Well, they didn't get it going for about 30 or 40 minutes into it.
No, I figured I'd just let the play-by-play on Twitter unfold, and that's the way I follow it.
Oh, at Twitter, it's its own personal hellhole.
I tried for the better part of a half an hour.
Oh yeah.
And maybe I'm just old and stupid, but I couldn't get it to work.
Well, you know what I say? If I'm having trouble with the computer, I call out the first 10-year-old that's walking by my house and throw him a 20 to come in and get me hooked back up. But it's just, it's we're just awash in stuff that we shouldn't have to think about. So what is your? Let's go back, Charlie, to the debate. It must have been as painful for you as it was for me.
Yeah, I felt bad from about the first minute in, and I left. I didn't comment on the should he stay or should he go thing. I recognize that it's his decision, but I did comment on the fact that if it wasn't going to be Biden, it had to be Harris.
Yeah.
Because if they'd gone for one of these ridiculous, blitz primary, let's have an open convention schemes, we know Democrats, okay? They couldn't do that well.
Yeah, right. The original gang that couldn't shoot straight, our fellow Democrats.
We don't want to give them the opportunity to form up that circular firing squad.
No, and I was amazed at how everything coalesced. White dudes for Kamala, sorority sisters for Kamala. Now there's the great. I was just reading some stuff this morning. All of the Republicans that are actually, besides the never Trump Republicans, but all the wasn't there like the mayor of Arizona came out, or not the mayor of Arizona, but one of the mayors of a big Arizona town, and other Republicans that are just coming out and saying, never Trump.
Yeah, I think you're watching an entire country exhale for the first time in 8 years.
Yeah.
Everybody, and I think the Democratic ticket is the vehicle, but basically the entire country is, this awful fat dead raccoon we've been carrying around our necks for 8 years is finally gone.
Boy, I cannot. Well, and he's not. He didn't accept Trump didn't accept the results of the last election after it went to court 60 times and lost every time. But he's not going to accept the results if he loses this time. So it's going to go. Yeah. Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's gonna go. We're not going to get rid of him on November 6th. That is for sure.
Well, I'm less afraid of Trump than I am of all the shenanigans going on at the state level.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Rachel Maddow is right about that. There's a lot of stuff going on in places like Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, a lot of finagling with the certification process. That worries me more than Trump, because frankly, I don't think he's going to have the energy to do what he did last time.
You know, you had, I was reading you, well, I always read Charles Pierce, Politics with Charles Pierce on Esquire.com. If you want to figure out what's going on, you gotta go with my buddy Charlie Pierce, Checkpoint Charlie, because he calls it as he sees it. But you had a great line about, I'm going to read it and jumping into a paragraph you wrote, Charlie. Not even to discuss the rusted ordnance that is the Electoral College, which sits in the middle of everything like an unexploded shell from the Battle of Yorktown. I mean, it's.
I was going to say World War II, and then I thought, no, this was the founders' brilliant idea.
Yeah, well, it's for those of you that have heard my conversations with Checkpoint Charlie and God, we've been doing this for it's going on several years now. I immediately got hip to your lingo and your politics when you referred to then Governor Paul Ryan in Wisconsin as the zombie-eyed granny starver. And I picked up a new word that we'll get to after the break, banjaxed. But we'll talk about that. We've got Charlie Pierce on. We're going to be talking about, we've got a lot of catching up to do. We haven't talked to him in a couple of months. And I'm excited to see what else he has to say on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. So stick around, more with Charlie Pierce after this break. Welcome back to the second set of the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metsa, and my guest, a fellow that I've gotten to know basically over the phone and over the interwebs, but we're happy to have him on, Checkpoint Charlie Pierce. Charlie, tell us a little bit about this Project 2025.
Well, basically, it's kind of, it's a 900, first of all, it's 900 pages long.
Wow.
It's 900 pages of the accumulated nocturnal emissions of American conservatism since 1980.
Wow.
It's their gathering wish list. And once people started looking at it, you know, it became about as popular as cholera, so they don't mention it anymore. But ProPublica, God bless them, got their hands on 14 hours of their training videos.
And tell us
I gotta
how.
tell you, Paul, these people ain't right in the head. I'll tell you. Whoops.
What are some of the horrific highlights?
Well, my favorite one is they want to phase out what they call recreational sex.
Oh, that'll go over well.
Yeah, that will pull very well, I think, particularly in Las Vegas and probably L.A.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's that it kind of it extends that idea of let's not only ban abortion but ban birth control.
Yes, and IVF.
Oh yeah, well, and that's
and it certainly plays into Governor Walz's, mind your own damn business.
Yeah, he does. His daughter Hope was IVF. I actually have my nephew Jake, who's in the film and TV business in New York, just have a lovely 1.5-year-old daughter by IVF, and it is a long and arduous and expensive process. But there was a really, I don't know if you saw it, Charlie Pierce, but a really brilliant clip. Governor Walz had hearing issues because when he was training in Italy, he was using heavy duty artillery to train soldiers coming up, and he lost quite a bit of his hearing. And when he finally got his hearing aids and his hearing back, he had a great quote, something about seeing his little baby, Hope. And he asked his wife, what is the noise? And she said, that is Hope singing. And he said, every father and mother should be able to enjoy the sounds of their child singing. I thought, man, that's a deep human.
I've only seen 2 videos with them, but Hope is going to be a star.
Oh yeah. Did you see the state?
She's like the perfect teenage wise ass already.
Did you see the state fair stuff when they're going on the rides?
That's my favorite. That's my favorite one. Where she says, I'm a vegetarian, and he says, one turkey. And she says, turkey's meat too. And he says, no, turkey's, I forget what he says, but.
Yeah, the guy's got a great sense of humor. And he's just done wonderful for the state.
I was reading it. I can't remember who wrote it, but I found it interesting. What they said was every place where the American Recovery Act had compromised something away so they could get it through Congress.
Yeah.
Walt put it back on a state. Put that stuff back on a state level in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a pretty shrewd way to put it.
He is. He's been an amazing governor. What's beautiful about when he is elected VP with Kamala is that Peggy Flanagan, the vice governor right now, will be the first Native American governor in the history of the United States. So that's a beautiful afterwave of what hopefully will be a winning Democratic ticket this coming November.
Yeah, I think certainly, the difference between the way I was feeling when I was out in Milwaukee at the Republican convention and the way I'm feeling going into Chicago next week is completely different.
Tell us, what was it like being at the Republican convention? That must have been a complete nightmare.
Yeah, well, it was in Milwaukee, so that made me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, right. It's your old stomping grounds.
It was just very smug. I mean, they thought they had the thing in the bag.
Right.
And,
right.
And I mean, it was every bit as revolting as any convention where you're nominating this guy would be. But the overriding thing was they thought they had a sure thing in the bag.
Yeah. Well, and have absolutely no way to attack Kamala or Tim Walz. Tell us about the helicopter story. You wrote about it. You had a great article about it in Politics with Charles Pearson, Esquire.com. But tell that story with Willie Brown.
Well, Trump claimed that he was in a near disastrous helicopter crash with Willie Brown, the great former mayor of San Francisco, former boyfriend of Kamala Harris, and that as they were falling to the earth, Willie Brown took time out to say some really nasty things about Vice President Harris, which is exactly what you do when you're falling to your eternal reward. Well, it turns out there was no crash. Willie Brown wasn't on the helicopter, and now Trump says it was in New Jersey and not in California.
Wow.
And he's going to sue the New York Times for fact-checking the story.
Well, where's he going to get the money to do that? I'll never know. I mean, he's going
to sue. He's going to sue the FBI for raiding his compound.
Well, he still owes Minneapolis.
David Koresh should have thought of that. Would have saved us a whole lot of trouble.
Oh man, he still owes the city of Minneapolis $350,000, And, with what I've been reading, and I'm sure you know more about this than I do, Charlie Pierce, but that's the reason why he can't campaign in a lot of cities, because he owes money all over the country.
Well, he had to go to his second or third choice for his rally in Montana.
Yeah.
Because the first couple, he'd already stiffed, I want to say Bozeman, it might have been Billings, I'm not sure, one of those two for a lot of money. And they said, no, we just as soon not host another one of these.
Yeah, right. Well, when he was in St. Cloud, Minnesota, which is about, 80 or 90 miles kind of northwest of Minneapolis, I'm sure the reason why he didn't do it in Minneapolis because they would have tried to get that 350 large from him. But yeah, I wonder if he's
treating entire cities the way he used to treat, glaziers and gardeners and stuff in Atlantic City.
Oh yeah, and New York City.
Just don't pay the guys.
Yeah. Well, he must be getting a deal on Epstein's plane. Who was the genius that thought, yeah, let's rent Epstein's plane? That's great visuals.
Well, no, it's actually not Epstein's plane anymore. It belongs to an aviation company who essentially bought it at what was essentially an estate sale in Florida. But still, the optics, my man, the optics are really bad. And by the way, if I'm flying on Jeffrey Epstein's old airplane, I am not sitting in any seat.
No, it's ridiculous.
Not without some King Hell disinfectant and maybe a hazmat suit.
Now, I also was reading Politics with Charles Pierce on Esquire.com, and you were writing about how even the Mormons are turning away from Trump.
Yeah, especially in Arizona, which is kind of a different school of Mormons than the ones in Utah. Remember, Mo Udall, who was, amazing progressive, was also a Mormon. But he was from Arizona. He was what they called a Jack Mormon.
Okay.
Which meant that, basically he was, he didn't let the church run his politics, basically.
Yeah. I did a gig in the early 90s in Pocatello, Idaho at some college. And it was really crazy because the town, south of the town were Mormons. North of the town was all white supremacists. And the mixing of the two, I played the college and then a coffee shop. I mean, you could really feel the tension between the two groups. And then not long after, when I was watching the O.J. Simpson trial, and when Mark Fuhrman, the cop that probably planted the glove, said he lived in Idaho, I go, well, that's it. Yeah, I think he lived outside of Pocatello. I said, yeah, that guy's a white supremacist. But anyway, I digress. What do you feel is going to be the effect on all the down ballot Senate and House seats around the country, Charlie?
Well, I think the Senate candidates got a big boost out of this. I think Sherrod Brown got a big boost out of it in Ohio. I think certainly Tammy Baldwin, one state over. I mean, once again, they're running a bunch of crazy people.
Yeah.
I mean, Carrie Lake in Arizona for an open Senate seat, you got to be out of your mind to have nominated her.
Let's talk a little bit about your man, Jay.
First of all, she's run for every damn office in Arizona.
She's totally insane. Let's talk a little bit about your man, J.D. Vance. Give us a little background.
I want to count my remarks very carefully here.
You
No, I
know,
mean has been, a surpassing phony his entire life.
yeah,
He writes a book where he throws his entire family under the bus and pretends to be the troubled white working class whisperer. It turns out he lives in a suburb in Cincinnati. Then he's calling Trump America's Hitler, and now he's campaigning for him. I mean, I wouldn't trust this guy. I mean, I trust this guy less than I trust Mitt Romney.
Well, and now there's photos of him wearing a dress. Of course, and you know what? I don't.
Yeah, but people getting in a dress when they're half in the bag in college.
Yeah, right.
I
No big deal.
A lot of people did that.
Yeah, but Gary Popovich never did that, Charlie.
Not as far as I know. But I can't speak for. I can't speak for what Pop may have done when I wasn't around.
You know what? It's literally blown my mind for years. All the references that came out of the 60s in the drug culture, like blow your mind and freak out and vibes. It's not only part of the normal discourse, but now vibes is a big thing in the political world.
Vibes has come back around.
Well, I'm all for it. I'm all about good vibes. Do not get me wrong, but I remember
the only person I know who used vibes consistently from the 60s until he passed away a few months ago was Bill Walton.
Yeah, exactly.
Always talking about vibes on the court, vibes at the Dead shows, vibes while he was doing games on TV.
Yeah, he was. He is missed for sure. I realized when that culture, the 60s culture, and I'm going to say just the drug culture, because there was a lot more going on in the 60s than just that. But I remember when I was in high school and my mother was getting together, we were having some sort of picnic out of the cabin at Lake Vermilion. And she said, well, I got to go in town and get some munchies. And I go, munchies? You know what munchies are? They're after you smoke weed and you get hungry. But anyway.
Yeah, well, yes, Paul, believe it or not, I do know what the munchies are.
That does not surprise me.
I am familiar with this affliction, yes.
Tell us before we go to break, Charlie Pierce, give us your best Bill Walton story.
Well, my best one, it's not a funny one, but it's a great one. We were at my friend Bob Ryan, the legendary Boston Globe sports writer, his son died tragically. He was an FBI agent working in Pakistan, and he died tragically over there. And at his memorial service, and I knew Bill from when I was following the Celtics around when Bill was there, and we talked about everything under the sun. And Bill drove up or was driven up from ESPN in Connecticut to go to the memorial service. And we were sitting down at the reception after the memorial service, my wife and I and Bill and Lori. And he asked me what I was doing, and I was just then starting the work on Idiot America. And he said, well, what's your book about? And I said, I fumbled around because it was still an embryonic idea in my brain. And I finally said, it's about the consequences of believing nonsense. And Bill, he carried around this little notebook where he'd write things down. He said, I have to remember that one. And he wrote it down. And that clarified my thinking on the book completely.
And it's a great book, Idiot America, by my guest, Charlie Pierce. Highly recommended. As is his, he writes several times a week on Esquire.com, Politics with Charlie Pierce. We got time for a break, and then we're back with Mr. Pierce for the third set on the Wall of Power, a radio hour.
Stake my future on a hell of a path. Looks like tomorrow is a coming on fast. Ain't complaining about what I got. Seen better times, but who has not? Silvio, silver and gold, won't buy back the beat of a hot-grown coal. Silvio, I gotta go find out something only dead men know. Honest as the next day rolling in stone. When I come a knocking, don't throw me the bone. I'm an over weaver looking for a home. If you don't like me, you can leave me alone. I can snap my fingers and require the rain. From a clear blue sky and turn it off again. I can stroke your body and relieve your pain. Chime the whistle off an evening train. Silvio.
Welcome back to the third set of the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metsa. We just listened to a song called Silvio, written by Bob Dylan and Robert Hunter of the Grateful Dead, and that was Bob Dylan with the Grateful Dead. And what brings us up, we have Charlie Pierce, our guest for the whole show, our continuing series at Checkpoint. Charlie, very well read and a big music fan. Did you see, Charlie, Obama's reading list and music list? What he's got, what he's been listening.
I haven't seen the reading list yet. I saw the playlist.
Yeah, well, he of course has great.
The man covers the waterfront. I'll give him that much.
For sure. What have you been listening to?
What have I been listening to? Well, to tell you the honest to God truth, I've been listening to completely disposable 1970s AM pop music.
What's your favorite go-to?
I don't know why. I've been to, maybe it's the summertime. Maybe it's the new, giddiness I'm feeling. But I'm listening to, Edison Lighthouse and the Five Stair Steps and.
Well, good for you.
And then at the end of the day, I'll listen to some Mississippi John Hurt just to mellow out.
There is a my favorite, and I'm not even going to call it a guilty pleasure, but the tune that always revs me up. If I ever get my own radio show where I just play music, I'm going to call it Thunder Island, because my favorite 70s summer song is Thunder Island by Jay Ferguson. That thing always helps me.
Yeah, I know that
blow
one.
A gasket.
Yeah, my favorite is, and I say this freely because two things. Number one, I have an absolute Jones for Karen Carpenter's voice.
Oh yeah.
Rainy Days and Mondays just kills me every time I wish her brother hadn't been such a hack producer and overdubbing her and throwing in angelic choruses and so forth. Just let that voice shine. And I want someone to do to their records what Paul McCartney did for Let It Be, where he took all the Phil Spector stuff and junked it. But I also, I love the song "Love Grows Where My Rosemary Goes." I don't know why.
It's a good tune.
But
that's why.
That song makes all my lights shine. I mean, it's bizarre. Oh, and I meant to ask you, now that we're on the subject, have you seen the trailer for the Timothy Chalamet Dylan movie?
Yes, and I was actually impressed. I'm very skeptical of the whole thing. What really knocked me out, Charlie, was how Ed Norton nailed Pete Seeger's accent to the wall.
Yeah, well, Edward Norton is like, this is weird because I just watched Primal Fear on TV the other day. Edward Norton's a genius actor. I mean, he's just,
yeah.
I mean, he would have won an Oscar for American History X, except the Academy was never going to give an Oscar to the guy with a giant swastika tattooed on his chest.
That
last wasn't going to happen. I tell you, I didn't buy Chalamet in either of the Dune movies, and I still don't.
Yeah.
But Bob from the Arrival in New York. I guess it goes from the Arrival in New York to Newport.
To Newport, yeah.
I buy him on that, and I can't figure out which of the women is Susie Rotolo and which of the women is Joan Baez.
Yeah, I can't figure that out either. But Timothy came up, he did his research. Let's see, we're in August. The end of winter, he came up, spent some time in Duluth, and then he actually went up to Hibbing High School and hung out with their theater class, and just to pick up the vibes in Hibbing. He took a tour of my old landlord's place, Bill Pagel. Bill, of course, owns the Dillon House in Duluth, the birthplace out where he was born. Well, he was born there, but that's where his childhood home. And then Timothy went up and spent some time with Bill at his house in Hibbing. But there's some really nice photos and a story about how he hung out with the theater students and was just kind of digging the vibe of the Hibbing High School auditorium, which I've had the pleasure of playing. It's a beautiful, about a 12 or 13, maybe 1,400 seat auditorium. And the original grand piano that Dylan broke the foot pedal for when he was doing his Little Richard right before they dropped the curtain on him is still there on the stage at Hibbing High School. So I give Timothy props to, once again, tracking down, if we can use the term again, the vibe.
Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't move there, because once you come to Hibbing, it's hard to go anywhere else. I mean, why would you go to Hollywood or, London if you could, live in Hibbing?
Well, and if we're going to talk movies now, you complimented on my Facebook post. You commented when you saw a picture of myself with Jeff Hansen, also known as Jeff Carlson, of course, one of the two brothers from maybe the greatest sports movie of all time, Slapshot.
A movie that is, a sacred object here in Massachusetts.
Oh yeah,
it's impossible to be a hockey fan in Massachusetts and not know every detail about Slapshot. Paul Newman said he had more fun making it than he did any other movie he ever made.
Yeah, and he did a great job skating, man. I mean, Newman was the cat. He was the all-around cat. When I moved back from New York in June of 1996, I was out there for about a year and a half. I bumped into a friend of mine who was from Mountain Iron, Minnesota, a few miles from Virginia on the Iron Range. He had just gotten divorced, and so I kind of listened to his tale of woe, and then I said, he said that his wife and daughter had just moved out. And I go, that's terrible. Do you have a room to rent? And I was that forward on it. And he goes, yeah, he was actually really kind of a lonely guy, of course, just getting divorced. So I moved in with him. He was a hockey player himself. He watched Slapshot on a loop. I asked him once, his name is Tony Tierberg. I said, Tony, how many times do you think you watched Slapshot? He goes, roughly about 250 times.
Yeah, for some people it's Caddyshack. For me, it's
exactly. Well, my sister called me when I'd moved in at Christmas, and I told her what was going on. I said, yeah, got a really nice roommate, but he watched Slapshot 24/7 when he's not working as a chef. And so she called me up to wish me Merry Christmas. Got Tony on the phone and said, Tony, what are you doing? He goes, I'm watching Slapshot. That was his holy grail, and God bless him for it. But what a phenomenal movie. But I'll tell you what, Jeff looked great. He's got hands about 3 times the size of mine. And I wouldn't want to run into him in either a dark alley or on the ice. He was those 3 Carlson brothers were We're about as tough as they
I was going to say, it wasn't much of a stretch to make him one of the Hanson brothers.
Not at all. So, Charlie, what do you got? When are you getting to Chicago for the Democrat convention?
I'll get there Sunday morning. You know, and spend probably most of Sunday getting my credentials and finding out the lay of the land where everything is, and then we're off to work on Monday morning.
That's beautiful. Charlie Pierce, follow him on the occasional hellhole that's formerly known as Twitter, which is now X, at Charles P. Pierce. Keep track of him. Charlie, I can't wait to see what you have to say about the convention and the run-up to November 5th. I'm as excited as you are. Thank God the universe works in mysterious ways.
And I had a wonderful surprise today, Paul.
What's that?
I was online, and I discovered that here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, God save it, if you're over 70 years old, your fishing license is free.
There you go. Say no more.
I got a free fishing license. Yeah, I'm living half a block from the Charles River, and, you know, whatever mutant creatures are swimming down there, I can pull them out now for free.
Well, and we're looking forward to getting you up here in Minnesota. You mentioned on the break you've got a little writing gig, a teaching gig at Madeline Island. So you haven't really fished until you caught a walleye, Charlie Pierce.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna warm up on the Charles. And
there you go. Get your fishing chops together
for some walleye and some northern pike.
Well, we've got plenty of those up here. They say the Minnesota land at 10,000 lakes. It's almost more like 12,000. Of course, then we have Lake Trout and Lake Superior. I can almost cast from where I'm speaking to you. Charlie, good luck with everything. You're my touchstone, buddy. So have a great rest of the summer and enjoy Chicago.
I will. Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This show is produced by Paul Metsa, engineered by Brett Johnson. And we'd like to thank our guest, Charles Pierce. Follow him on Twitter, X, at Charles P. Pierce. Get his book, Idiot America. Just a wonderful guy. You can follow me at paulmetsa.com. Track down my books and records and more. Hoping to come to the big city, Minneapolis. Of course, I record this out of Duluth. End of September or October, we're going to raise some money for the Democratic ticket. In the meantime, like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy.
There will be no power brokers. The wall of power will fall.